Oh, there we go. I see something popping up on mine. There we go. Hey.
Hey, hello. Hi, PJ.
Hey, yo, what's going on, Roberto?
How you doing?
Great, man. I'm
Okay, it
excited for this.
looks like we are already live here on, and today actually we are doing some experiment because we are live. At least I think we are live on LinkedIn, we are live on YouTube, on Twitter. I don't know what is going on, but hello.
We'll find out at the end of this, so
Exactly.
it's all fine.
We will find out. Actually, there is one fun thing that we said that every time we meet, we do an experiment,
Hmm.
which, by the way, I want to thank you for being here today, Sunday morning, 10 a.m. your time. And I know you're a family guy like me. So I think we also have to thank our family for the generosity of allowing us to have fun
Yeah,
without them and then
yeah,
have
exactly.
fun again.
I'm gonna step away for a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to do this. And this is the actually it's today before the anniversary of our first conversation that we did here, and it was the very first conversation that I did here. So it's a very special one for me. And also, hi to everyone. I see we have already 11 people connected. We are not going to check the chat from the beginning, but yes, we are going to do it later. So if you want to say hi or drop a question to PJ or for me, feel free to do that in the middle of the conversation. We're going to check the chat and answer the question, any question you have. And we hope you had fun. And also thank you, first of all, to you, PJ, for investing this time, and also to the people who are already connected, because we are investing the only thing that we cannot get back, which is our time.
Mhm.
So we hope that it's worth.
I hope
So
so too. Yeah.
my first question would be, and I already mentioned that you it's the second time we meet. Still, I would love to hear your story and how did you start doing visual, and a little fast forward in this year.
Mm.
What happened and what's this highlight of doing visual and being also a visual teacher, not just doing visual, but also you define yourself as a visual teacher, which is especially exciting for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I want to say about a couple years ago, March 2022, I had made the investment of deciding finally, okay, I'm going to start, you know, posting stuff online. And I started initially actually writing.
Mm,
And the issue with writing, though, initially, also when you are nobody, I mean, I was just a teacher, a high school teacher, and I still am just a high school teacher. But when I first started, I was just, anytime I wrote something, it just was out, throwing a message in a bottle into the ocean
yeah.
with a billion other messages in bottles. So it's like it got easily swallowed up, and nobody really opened them up. And I came across some people who were posting visuals or what looked like these visuals online, and I was like, huh, these are interesting. And I thought to myself, huh, okay, I'm a visual teacher. I mean, I teach filmmaking and animation. I present metaphors to help my students explain ideas to them all the time. And I was like, what if I just started posting that kind of stuff too? And so I started sharing some of those, and that started to pick up some traction. And uh, over time, eventually these visuals became a thing. And I should say, like, maybe some of the people in the audience might resonate with this, but it wasn't obvious to me that any of this would work. It wasn't obvious to me that even I should be posting online. So I hesitated for years and years and years. And the hesitation is more like I procrastinated for years and years and years doing something because I was trying to think of the right thing to do before I started doing the thing. And I share this story in my course, but I initially had like I was, I had turned 42, and I was, I was journaling, And in my journal, I had written something along the lines of, okay, man, I'm turning 42. I needed to start doing something. Because as a visual, as a creative teacher, as someone who teaches creative arts, you know, my students always ask me, what are you working on? Because I'm teaching them how to be creative, and they're like, well, you must be doing
Yeah.
this and this and that. So they're always asking me, what are you working on? And I'm like, mm, I'm spending all my time just like teaching you guys, So I haven't, had the opportunity to do anything for myself. And so, I'm 42. This was, post-pandemic as well, so that had a big impact on my thinking at that time. And I was like, okay, I can't keep dilly-dallying. I need to start doing something. But then I had like this deja vu feeling, and I was like, wait a minute, hold up, hold up, hold up. I feel like I've said this before, and so I have like all these other journals, like,
Yeah.
I have like a bunch of them all on the floor everywhere. And I started flipping through some of the previous journals, and I found that I had written the same thing also around my birthday,
Oh,
10 years before that. And I just thought, I was like, okay, if I don't, I either start doing something, I'm 10 years older, I haven't done anything, I haven't taken any leaps. If I don't do something now, then I'm like, I might as well just stop saying
yeah.
it. So that's what initially was the thing that got me kind of pushed past that analysis paralysis kind of state, and start posting writing. And then the visuals was the kind of trigger to help, I guess, create a package of the thinking and the ideas that I wanted to share. And it wasn't, again, obvious that I should keep doing it, but after about a month of creating content, creating visuals. I probably had created about 12, but in that month. And somewhere down the line, I saw that I got tagged on a post that Adam Grant had posted on one of my
Yeah.
visuals, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, hold up. I had to like, triple check that it was the real Adam Grant,
Yeah, it was not a scam or
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I was like, wait, what? Is this real? I have his books on my bookshelf, and I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, what? And I messaged him, and he was just the loveliest person, and so gracious, so kind, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like by using visuals as my medium of communication, it allowed me to step outside of my classroom to share the
Yeah.
ideas that I wanted to teach and that
Yeah.
I wanted to spread in the world. And it was able to connect with people that, I'm listening to podcasts or whose books are on my bookshelf. And what a beautiful thing to be able to connect with other folks that are also like-minded. And yeah, so that's a long-winded way of saying that's kind of like how I started. But fast forward to today, it's I still kind of have that same mindset, and like I still think it's the thing I'm usually I get most excited about is to build real connections with real people, um, you know, to connect with anytime somebody like
Yeah.
an author or someone that I've been following the work reaches out. I'm like, oh wow, that's amazing. You saw my work. That's and you resonated with that. That's cool because I resonate with this and this and that or the other. And having those
Yeah.
conversations, and honestly, just talking with other teachers who are also have that same state of mind where it's like I want to do something, but I don't know how, and or I don't know if my
Yeah.
ideas are worth sharing. So I think those things excite me most today.
Yeah. And this that you say that it's this struggle. Remind me of something that you shared some time ago. You did a little poll about what keeps you from creating your own metaphor, which can be extended to everything. So it's not like just metaphors, but it can be what keeps you from sharing. And
Yeah,
what did you learn from this feedback? I'm
yeah,
curious.
yeah. So I think there was maybe about I don't know how many people responded to that, but I want to say at least 500-600 people. About 60% of those people, the majority of it was about maybe some insecurity with their ability in either drawing or
Yeah.
some some fear around that. And I resonate with that. I completely understand with that hesitation, especially depending on what kind of work you do and maybe the perception of the audience that might be attracted to the work that you do. So, maybe you might be a surgeon and you don't want to create an illustration that may not make you, at least make you feel like you're being professional or whatever the case might be. But I generally push back against that. So that's what I learned, is that there is a strong fear and maybe hesitation to post work because of perceptions of what other people might perceive of the quality of your illustrations or whatnot. But one of my core, I have a few core beliefs around creativity, and one of the core beliefs is that it's less about creating something perfect. It's more about being interesting. And
Hmm.
I created a visual around this idea, and I frame it in the
Yeah.
course like it's less about being accurate in your drawings and more about being interesting, or
Hmm.
said another way, being perfect versus being interesting. And how you're interesting is by being imperfect. Like, how you're interesting is the way you draw things, and you do it imperfectly. Like, you don't draw a face that's 100% realistic. You draw the face how you might decide to embellish this particular compartment or whatever, or this little feature. You extend the body, you make it look exaggerated and weird and goofy and funky, and that's what makes it fun and interesting. And in the world of AI, we
Yeah.
need more interesting and we need
Yes.
less perfect. And so
Yeah.
that's my push towards anyone who feels that way, as far as like, I
Yeah.
want to make something that looks, I want to, like, when you use AI, and AI is great, it's going to be a great tool for a lot of people, and I think it's great, but if everyone can do it,
Yeah. It's all the
then
same.
it's all the same.
Yeah.
But if you do something that's unique and interesting in how
Yeah.
you compose something, then that's going to be your surefire way to stand out.
Yeah, it reminds me of probably many of the people also saw the panic monster and the instant gratification monkey from Tim Urban.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right, exactly.
It was done probably with the paint, not even vector, but it's
Yeah,
like,
like
oh,
PowerPoint or something.
I get it. Yeah, exactly. And this is so interesting, and also connects with something that you share, which is why is that so important for you to have a creative practice? Because
Mm,
this is something that I think you believe very strongly.
I do, and I was able to finally articulate it maybe few weeks ago. I had articulated this actually. I have me and Hannah Wilson and Michael J. Borman, who are wonderful folks. If you don't follow or you follow them,
Yeah,
visual creators,
take care of
we
that.
pretty much talk like every day. And I had shared this with them several months ago, but I shared this publicly recently, that I was like, okay, I need to come up, and how do I articulate all the things I feel about a creative practice
Yeah,
in just a single phrase? And it was, I want to encourage people to have a creative practice to make the world a more creative place. And that sounds really like cheesy, but like I was like, that's so much in line with what I do. Um, you know, teaching high school, what I try to do with encouraging the students who take the thinking in visual metaphors course, and then also in the content that I'm trying to create, is that I do believe, and you don't have to create visuals and uh, illustrate anything to
yeah,
categorize that as being creative. Your creative practice can be in many different um, domains. Like, you just got your coaching certificate. That is, being a coach is, you're trying to come up with creative solutions. Even just as a teacher, you're coming up with creative ways to express and frame ideas for your students, so you can practice creativity in multiple different ways.
yeah,
The trick is to have a regular creative practice, so that and the regularity is important to me, because it helps at least break down some of the mental barriers that a lot of us have to struggle against, like perfectionism, procrastination, um, analysis paralysis, imposter syndrome, all these things. You can drown all of those out by doing something regularly, because the habit of it is going to keep you from having to manage some of those challenges that can infect your mindset.
Yeah, I love what you say about creativity is not just drawing or doing illustration, because I 100% feel the same. And one thing that is curious also is that people who also know me, and I also do that, they do illustration, of course, and someone says, "Oh, I didn't know you did that. I didn't expect that." And it's just,
Like,
yeah,
thank,
and
thank
it's
you.
just it's just a part of who we are. We can be creative. We can express this creativity in many ways. You can, as you said, you can do it in a job. For example, in coding, I
Hmm.
code. I do coding, and you can be creative doing coding, because you can structure it in a way, and then you can put it in a different way, which is yours. Of course, there are best practice, etc. But every single thing you can do your own way. It's like giving your taste or your flavor. And it's also connects to one thing that one person shared with me, and she said, "Oh, I'm doing all these things, but then I see that someone else did it." And so I it's like, what can I share it? It's not 100% new. And I would like to push a little bit back with that, because almost everything is have been said or invented. You mean, for example, the Stoics ideas. We have a lot of Stoic ideas. Today, actually, I shared the carousel about Stoics, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah. I saw that.
thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
But then we have our own context, we have our experience, and we can say it in a slightly different way or from our perspective. And if it's authentic to you, why not? So
Hmm.
it's again, you mentioned the limitation. Oh, I don't do this because I cannot do, I fear judgment, or because it's not original. Who am I to judge if it's original or not? If
Yeah.
for you, if for
Yeah.
me, it's
Yeah.
authentic to me, and I feel that I put my own idea and my own shape, why
Mhm.
not? And
Yeah.
maybe someone said it 1 year ago, and if you don't know, is it still yours or not? So
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to add to that. One thing I try to convey is, I do believe that if you are taking somebody else's work and then you're more or less changing the color and applying the same, labels and wording, and it's the same graphic, but you took it from Canva. I don't want to I don't want to encourage that kind of
yeah,
posting or behavior, because I don't think that that is um, adding anything that is yours. It's not so much like, let's just step away from the copyright infringement stuff.
yeah,
That's just as a philosophical
yeah,
practice. I think it's not tapping into your creative potential. So I don't want to encourage it, because I think that we are all capable of adding our own creative spin on these things. And and one way I try to, I guess, frame it as, the term I like to use is, we all have our own creative accents. And you have your creative accent, I have a creative accent. And again, how we shape things imperfectly, that is our creative accent. And if you are unsure if you want to post something, you're like, oh, this is, I don't want to copy somebody. The actual methodology of doing this is pretty simple. You take one idea, and then you take a different idea, and then you remix those ideas. And the way you remix it is filtered through your creative accent.
yeah,
And then you have something that's unique and interesting and different. And it's not about thinking something completely new.
yeah,
It's that you are tapping into another perspective in this giant, imagine this like
yeah.
thing
It's
that
a
has
connection, different connection.
50,000 different facets.
Yeah,
And you are just turning that little ball that has all these different facets, and you're showing us one more. But if you just show us the same exact facet that somebody
yeah.
else created, I don't necessarily agree that that is the ideal place we want to be for our own creative practice. So that's what I would also invite and encourage other folks to kind of think about.
Definitely agree with that. And when you say that, reminds me another thing that you share, which was the follow the rules, master the rules and break the rule.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah, that's my little three-step framework of and I wish I could take credit for it, but that's straight from Bruce Lee, learn the rules, master the rules, break the rules. And it's I kind of go back to when I first learned how to dance salsa. I met my wife dancing salsa, and
Oh,
she's just like super good before I met, when I met her, she was already like really elegant, doing all kinds of like styling moves and whatnot. And I just showed up to my first class and I was like, okay, okay, how am I going to level up my skill set so that I can somehow step up to this beautiful woman that is so elegant and dances so amazingly? And it was not easy because I was like, everyone else is styling, everyone else is looking like they're doing everything masterfully, but I am just trying to learn the steps. Now, I would try once in a while to do what I saw everyone else doing, and it just didn't look good. It looked horrible. And so the thing is that you have to learn the steps, then you have to master the steps, then you know when you can skip a step to style and show what it
uh-huh.
is that what it looks like everyone else is doing, and you can't skip those. So it's very much you. It's almost like you have to learn the science of something before you can learn the art form of it, and that is what I found to be true for many, many, many skill sets, whether that's visual thinking or writing or dancing. So it's a very much a process that I'm 100% behind.
Yeah, what I hear is that you have to be humble at the beginning
Mm.
and curious also, no, about what you don't know. So you see how it feels, and then step by step, when you see that this feels good, I'm going to try
Yeah,
again
yeah, yeah.
something more, more daring. Yeah, beautiful. And I'm curious now that we're talking about this mastery, and it's 1 year that you started teaching a visual course. I
Mm.
remember the first conversation that we had, you just finished the first cohort, and
Yeah,
now
yeah,
you finished number 8.
yeah.
So, what's the biggest learning in this journey? Which, by the way, it's amazing. Congratulations, PJ, because it's
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been great. I've I just recently shared a post that one of the students had posted, Elico. Um, she had posted something really lovely just very recently, and I was just like, yeah, man, it's just one really crazy side effect that I did not expect is the kind of folks, and thank you for that beautiful comment too. Yeah, you put a comment with a visual, like your vibe attracts your tribe, but
yeah,
um, but yeah, one interesting side effect is just the I'm really humbled and um, pleasantly surprised of the quality and the quality of folks, and I hate to say quality of folks, but I mean just the type of people who are like-minded, who are attracted to a course like this. These not only like very smart, interesting professionals, but just kind and thoughtful and really open-minded. So that's been one really cool side effect of doing this for 8 cohorts. It's been
yeah.
like roughly over 300 students, I think now,
Wow.
which is amazing. But I would say the biggest learning has been just um, applying the same mindset around creating visuals to the course and the content of the course, the spirit of iteration, the spirit of continuous improvement. That has really impacted not only how I teach this online course, which is probably the best thing I've ever taught at this point. Like I say that really confidently because it was like I've the speed of iteration is so condensed.
Yeah,
Like I can being able to create 8 iterations is much faster than how I'm able to iterate, normal courses, because usually it's a semester and then another
yeah,
semester and another semester. But this is like a very condensed course,
yeah. Quick
and I
feedback.
can, yeah, and I can continue to finesse it. and that part of it is just so fun and exciting to do. And because I also, it's like, oh, here's an insight I gathered from a question that a student asks that helps me get a deeper understanding of what's actually happening in the visual relationships, as I like to sometimes call the kind of stuff that we're doing in visual metaphors. We're creating these relational bridges between what we know and what we don't know, or the familiar and the unfamiliar. So just the more that I've been able to run this cohort and engage with students and learn where their struggles are, the more I'm able to not only express it in a more efficient and clear manner, but to help clarify my own thinking around those things that helps with the practice and reinforces the fact that what we do as we try to share these ideas to make it more accessible to more people, that it can be just such a powerful practice. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, just to be able to also just connect with people. And I would also just add this one last bit, which is a really another cool side effect is I had like before posting my first thing online, I was going through like this personal struggle of, getting older, getting into your 40s. It's one struggle I personally have had is just, the change in friendship dynamics. Excuse me. Like as you have a family, you kind of start to get internal in how you
Yeah,
spend your time, which is
absolutely.
not a bad thing. It's just a change.
Yeah,
And one aspect that I was really hungering for was community. And community is different than friendships. Community is like your friends knowing each other, and then they're friends, and so it's like they're connected and you're connected to them. And so one of the aspects that I was really hungering for was that level of connection. And I didn't expect, fast forwarding 2 years from when I
yeah,
first posted that, and from the first beta of this course, that a community would organically happen by the students. Because and I have two students who are just like really amazing, that they wanted to start a community inside LinkedIn. So it was like a additional thing for students by students that kind of kept the teaching and the learning going after me. And just seeing some of those things organically happen, that has just been really lovely. And to also fulfill this thing that I had been hungering for like 2 years, maybe even, I mean, 2 years is, it was far longer than that. That has also been just a lovely little side effect as well.
interesting. Now, talking about,
What? What's
I
that?
have my son here said hi. He said something.
What's
We were
up?
playing. Yeah, it's not coming in yet, but he will come. He will come probably. Okay. Oh, PJ, you said one thing now. I remember you were talking about struggles, and I'm curious because, and thank you by the way for being so open, so transparent, and so that people also can see who you are and what are your values. And I'm curious at this moment, what are you struggling with, or what is your biggest challenge?
Mm, biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Um, I think a year ago, it was, I think I answered the same thing, and I would say it's still the same struggle. And the struggle is where to prioritize your focus,
Mm,
and what order to prioritize that in. One thing at a time. So sequencing the right, or maybe not the right, but the most appropriate thing
yeah.
for now is the most challenging thing, because sometimes it's really easy to lose focus.
Yeah.
One thing that, um, as an example, I have students who have asked for a second course, a more advanced course,
Uh-huh.
or even a community level course to support what I'm doing here. Um, I've been approached by really thoughtful people to work with
Yeah.
them on their ideas to help visualize their ideas. Um, I have a newsletter, I have
Yeah.
a website, I have my own personal teaching, I have my own family, and
Yeah.
there's all these different things that are constantly competing for all of these things. And I think it's not a unique struggle. How do we prioritize our time? But I find it particularly tough because each one of these things sounds amazing, and like you
And it
just like
is.
do
Yeah,
all of them.
definitely.
Yeah, and you want to do all of them all the time
Yeah.
now. And that is not something that goes away. In fact, any level of success makes it worse because
Yes.
you're now faced with
More.
more opportunities and you're like, okay, which one of these should I focus on?
Yeah.
And you don't want to take on anything without doing it to the full level of your ability. So uh, I don't want to do like 100 things and do them all mediocrely.
Yeah.
I think we all are high achieving folks that want to do things well. So I think that is probably the biggest struggle.
Mhm.
And I don't think it'll ever change. Like that is going to be the biggest struggle.
Well,
Uh,
I would like to challenge you a little bit because I
yeah,
remember, PJ, and I would like to have your feedback on that. Once you shared with me and you posted, I think, one online, you said you're not trying to be as productive all the time.
yeah.
So, where's the lesson in
Yeah, no, you're
the?
100% right. Like and the funny thing is, these visuals are not meant to be like, this is me. I am a guru, and I have figured all these things out. You all may now know my knowledge and wisdom. No, it's more like this is for me as much as it is for anyone else. And most of
Yes.
these things are aspirational, and it's almost like by making the visual, I'm hoping to cement that lesson. And there's always going to be these regressions of whatever it is that we've been able to apply in our lives.
Yeah.
So that is definitely, I appreciate that reminder. And it's and that's the thing, right? It's so tough to manage the reality that is how limited we are. Like we have to, not only is it that we can't do everything, not only is it not about that, but we have to come into acceptance almost daily that
Yeah.
we
Yes.
are
Yeah.
our capacity is only so much, and we have to be so much more scrutinizing with how we devote our time. So actually one of the things I respect about you, Roberto, is I've actually witnessed you say no, and I'm like, slow clap, because you were like, look, you've never, uh, to your credit, you've never said no to anything I've asked, and I'm always like, man, thank you so much for your time. But I've also seen you say no to other folks, and because of your priorities, and I think that is just again one of those aspirational things that
Yeah.
um I need to be able to be better at, and it's not easy for sure. But yeah, as you say, like we shouldn't. It's not about getting the most done. It's about doing the most meaningful things now, and
Yeah.
that's a regular thing that I need to create more visual reminders for myself for.
Absolutely. Thank you for remembering that, PJ. And there is one more thing that I would like to add, which is that when we share something online, it makes us a little bit more vulnerable and accountable. Because
Yeah.
imagine that I share visual, and there is a lot that I share about listening or about
Mm.
asking questions or about having difficult conversation. And then in my own life, I
Right.
don't do that.
Yeah.
So
Your
I
children
say,
and your wife are like, hey, what about
yeah,
this?
exactly. So, as you said, oh, this is my truth, and you can all learn from it. Absolutely not. So, I also do it for myself because if I share something about, oh, I have to go into the difficult conversation. There's a beautiful metaphor which is putting the fish on the table, which is from
Mm.
George Corser, which is
Mm.
You know, the fish, if you get it under the table, it's a difficult conversation. And if you don't take it out, what happens? It stinks.
Yeah.
And it gets
Right.
worse.
Yeah.
If you put it on the table and if you clean it, then you can eat it and you can have an amazing dinner. So if I share this, and then in my own life, I don't put the fish on the table. So I know it. People don't, but I know it. So
Yeah.
it's also a reminder of which kind of person I want to be. To be
Exactly.
more
Exactly.
accountable to myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point for sure.
Okay, so I'm curious now. Time flies. I see it's already past half. Let's check the chat if we have some question from the people connected, and if not, of course, we can go on for hours. Let's check
Yeah.
one
Sure.
moment before going on. Okay, I'm going to check here. From the comments I'm putting this. Where is the order? Where's the order? Comments. Here. Yeah, from the most recent. Let's start. Yeah, you both do a marvelous job, Christopher. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, Mubina. Hi, Sufyan. Hi, Michael. Hi, Zahra. Brian is saying, create to serve people who are hesitant to lead, provide tools, expect mistakes less than idea. One message, one person. Ah, that's interesting. Maybe you want to expand something on that or one message at a time. I
Yeah.
think there's some value in that.
Yeah, so that's one of the core rules I have for visual metaphors specifically, and I think it's important that we distinguish the difference between a visual metaphor and like infographics and
Oh,
sketchnoting, because they're all different. It's easy to conflate all those things together, but for visual metaphors, and I kind of equate it, at least the way I use visual metaphors. It just depends on maybe how you use it, but the way I like to think about it and the way I use visual metaphors is to teach and to teach an idea. And usually it's the first time that you're coming across this idea. At least that's how I'm thinking about it, right? So an infographic is usually information dense.
yeah,
So we have all these different pieces of content in one thing.
yeah.
I think that's a great resource usually for reminders of something you already know and know well. But with visual metaphors, the reason I think one message, one visual is we want to be information clear. So versus information dense. So information clarity is more important in this context. So the single visual, one, it creates the constraint of simplifying it, not dumbing down, simplifying it so that it can be easily understood by someone who is coming across this idea for the first time. And you can create a series of visuals
Yeah.
to convey a more articulate, more nuanced thing. Um, but I think it's very important that you try to keep it um, as like singular as possible. And one tip I give for students is to try to convey it in a single sentence, so that
Yeah.
you can be able to know whether or not it's clear or not.
That's great. Thank you. And it applies to everything. So even if we are asking a question of doing something, can you say that in one sentence?
Right, right,
What's
right.
the essence of that?
Exactly.
Behind, what's the importance behind of that?
What's the important lesson here?
Exactly. Let's see if we have more. Uh, are you Michael, asking which tool are you using? If you are using Procreate, maybe you want to talk a little bit about tools.
Yeah, yeah. I and I usually hesitate to get too far into the weeds of tools, but
Yeah.
just for to answer the curiosity, I do use Procreate for most of the visuals that I post. I've been recently playing around with using Figma for more simplified ideas, just for speed, something
Hmm.
I'm playing with. But Procreate is the tool that I use. But I do also generally like to keep it tool agnostic in terms of how you're approaching the thinking around these things, the tool is helpful. Of course, you want things to be aesthetically pleasing. You want things to have a certain feel, but when you're first trying to just get past that first hurdle, if you get too caught up in a tool, it can
Yeah.
prevent you from actually doing the thing. And honestly, like even with Figma, and I know Roberto, use Affinity, that if you probably only use such a
Oh yeah,
small portion of those tools that are available
absolutely.
to you, and you probably only needed to learn maybe 1% to get started of it.
Yeah,
And then as you're learning, as you create each visual, as you come across like a design problem or a technical problem, you do a YouTube search or Google search on fixing that or
exactly.
figuring that out, and that
Exactly.
that can get you just again
Yeah,
past those first hurdles. But Procreate is
definitely.
great. It's like $13. I
Yeah.
Procreate. If anyone knows anyone at Procreate, I need to have some kind of sponsorship deal with them because I've been calling out Procreate for at least the last 2 years. But yeah, it's great. It's $13. You don't have to spend anything past that. It's not a membership. It's on the iPad. That's the only downside. If you don't have an iPad, it may prevent you from being able to use it. But yeah, Procreate's great.
Yeah, and what you say reminds me of just starting. Just
Mhm.
start and then figure it out. And also be curious about different ways of doing things because from my perspective, for example, it's so easy to find out a way to do whatever and then not even think that maybe there is a more efficient way to do it.
Right.
So,
It's an easier way to do that.
and maybe you do the same 1 year, and then you do a YouTube search and see how can I do X and Y and Z, and say, oh wow, there's a feature for that, and you
That's
don't
right.
know. So, and this is also, I think, applies to everything because
Mm.
we are stuck in doing the things in some way. And what you mentioned about the creativity and the connection, always questioning ourselves, is this the better way to do this? Can I
Mhm.
do it better? And now
Yeah.
even with AI, ask the questions and see what can I do different? What can I improve? And keep discovering things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if the tool, of course, is not the most important thing, it's how we use the tool and which
Mhm.
question do we ask and how we try to improve. That's at
Yeah.
least how we approach it.
Yeah, it's like an extension of your thinking, and that can be valuable. So it does create and contribute to the environment that which you create in. It's just that if you, again, I'm just going back to my own experience, to my own like thinking back in the day, is if you find it becoming frustrating to use a tool because it either is a little bit too advanced or whatnot, then dial back, lower the bar, maybe change the tool, uh, just so that you can get in that creative idea expression out,
Exactly.
and then, or just remember that it's a process, and you'll eventually get to the point where you can use the tool a little bit more efficiently, just like asking those questions, like you said.
Yeah, definitely. Finding something, I always say that find something that feels good,
Yeah.
that it does not look like a chore, and they say, "Oh no, I have to do this. I hate it so much." So it's not good.
Right.
We cannot do that by just brute force. It has to be fun. If
Yeah.
it's not fun, you cannot get this spark and say, oh, "Okay, I want to do this more." And I also did that. I was 1 year doing the transparency in one time, one way, and then I found out, oh, I can scale this. Oh, it was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how could I do this 1 year? But it
Yeah.
was fun. It was a fun moment. It was not like, oof, I hate doing this. And I say, how can I do this better?
Yeah, yeah, and you bring up a great point because the point is not so much to finish the visual. The point is to enjoy and think of the long term of doing this over the span of time. And you should, and I would also say, I had a student recently ask about, when they should start posting their work. Should they build up a series of
Oh,
visuals before starting, or should they just start and just keep doing it? And my gosh, Anne-Laure Kampf, I want to say she's in charge of she runs Nest Labs. She has a book coming out called Tiny Experiments, and I think it very much encompasses the mindset that I think is helpful to have with these things, and this kind of the mindset you had when you started doing these LinkedIn Lives,
Yeah.
that you're running a tiny experiment. And with a tiny experiment, you need to kind of create the parameters for it so that you can judge the value of doing it, not based on your current experience of it, but retroactively and reflecting on it after you've completed the experiment. So, as an example, like let's say you're deciding whether or not I should start posting visuals now, or whether I should build up a series of visuals, whatever. The thing is, if you post a visual and you get a massive response to it, that's great. But what if your second visual you don't? And what if your third visual you don't? How do you judge that? So, or vice versa, you post your first visual, nothing, second visual, nothing. You don't post your third visual, which may have gone viral or whatever. So you want to be careful to protect yourself from that kind of thinking. And
Uh-huh.
having some kind of tiny experiment approach can be really useful, because then what you could
Yeah.
do is you can say, all right, I'm going to create 4 visuals over the next 4 weeks. So you need essentially some level of production, some time limit for this kind of experiment, I think, to be meaningful. You just said, okay, I'm going to run this live, with PJ a year ago, and then we and it was like, oh yeah, this is cool. Let's do another one. Let's do another one. And you kept kind of doing it, and we're doing another tiny experiment now with
Yes.
with you know sharing to YouTube. The way we started this was different than the way we started it last. We didn't
Yep.
have like a musical, start, whatever. So if you can somehow frame your venture into some new creative practice as a tiny experiment, set the production amount, set the time limit, then say at the end of that time limit, I am going to reflect on my experience of this, whether I want to keep doing it or not, and whatnot. I think that can also be just one added little bit to, which is very tangential to the tool set you use, maybe deviating it a little bit far away from it, but it is connected to just like
Absolutely.
the spirit of what you're doing.
Absolutely. And I would add on that is that the the size of the experiment can be whatever you feel right
Yeah.
with. If you think, okay, I'm very motivated. I have, for example, a book. I can do a series on a book because I love the book and I enjoy it so much. You can do it. At the same time, you can do just one because
Right.
if you get
Yeah.
pleasure, if you like doing that, just do it. And then, of course, there is the external validation and internal motivation, all this struggle. No, how important is the validation and how important is that I do it for myself also. So at one point, you may also think, who cares? Of course, of course, we like when the thing we share connect with people because
Mm.
it also gives this part of connection and something that you share is important to other one. Maybe you start a conversation. It's beautiful. But then also you can share because you like it and you want to be this person talking about this.
Yeah.
And it's perfectly valid. Thank you, PJ, because different perspective. We have one question. We have a question from here, Venkatachalam, and I hope I pronounced it correctly, your name. Interesting insights. Thank you. Curious to know which time you prefer to create your content, late night, early morning, to say which would say good focus time with
Mm.
distraction. Seeing these needs are meant to be stimulated with creativity in long hours to focus to put them to work. Okay, maybe I will give you my take.
Mm.
And this is different from one moment to the other. So,
Yeah.
first of all, what works for you? I would say when you feel like you are excited about that, that's time. So, experiment. Maybe you try in the morning, works. Maybe you try in the evening, it works. There is no one solution. What works really well for me in the beginning, very early, I put aside some time in the early morning and I did one illustration a day. Because, as you said, I did the experiment when I started and I wanted to see how it felt. But now it's changed, and I mostly do. It's funny, but when I'm on travel, when I'm traveling in a plane and taxi, I do, which is not, of course, a lot of times a week, but when I do that, I have 4 hours of focus because
Mhm.
no connection, nothing, and I
Yeah.
prepare the day after, the day before. I say, okay, what I'm going to do, what I'm excited about. I take a backlog and I say, oh, I love to do this, 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 this. So I put a lot of idea in the backlog. I don't have time to do everything, of course, and then
Yeah.
I pick the one that excites me the most. And then another thing, which is do it at any moment that you have the inspiration. Maybe And you mentioned Procreate, you mentioned the Figma. There are some tools that you can use assets that you already have. So maybe you see something online, and for example, you shared about the your vibe attracts your tribe quote, which is by the way from my one of my coaching trainer, which is Michelle Campton, which is an amazing
Mm,
coach,
mm.
by the way. And it's an iteration on the magnet. And I did it in a few minutes because I have the idea, so I can put it. It's just 5 minutes. So you can do it in the moment. You can set aside the time, or you can do it ad hoc whenever it feels. The bottom line for me is that it has to feel like fun, and you have to be energized about that. So play and experiment. What's your take about it?
Yeah. So I agree with everything you said. I think if I'm starting out and maybe more of how it's playing out today, there's a period I've noticed, at least nowadays, the period of time when I'm most on, the brain is most on
Yeah.
for me is the mornings,
Mm.
which I was not for most of my life. But now it is the mornings. But unfortunately, that is not the time that I have for execution. So I found the way I've kind of parsed it out is the thinking happens usually in the morning. Uh, the execution usually happens in the evenings.
Um,
And so the thinking might be, okay, here are the ideas, here's how I'm going to position them and whatnot. And then the execution is, okay, now I've got 30 minutes or an hour and a half
yeah.
or whatever it is in the evening. Um, what's helpful having an iPad is I can sit in the living room with the family as they're either watching TV or as people are getting or as we're getting ready for dinner or whatnot, and I don't have to figure out what it is I'm going to be executing because I've already done that earlier in the day,
Yeah.
and so that's just the execution time. So that's practically how it kind of works for me nowadays. But before, as you say, you kind of just do it whenever you've got time. Um, Matthew Dix, he wrote a book called "Someday Is Today." And if you're not familiar with Matthew Dix, I highly recommend his first book, which is Storyworthy. Amazing book on storytelling and storytelling, oral storytelling. And he's like this storytelling like grand champion on like telling stories and whatnot. So great book. But his second book, "Someday Is Today," is about productivity, productivity, and so on. And one thing that he talks about is anytime if you're waiting for a burger, you could be thinking about this. If you're waiting for your kids at school, you could be thinking about this. So that's where like you want to kind of separate the thinking versus the execution. The time where
Mhm.
you're coming up with ideas, that could be anywhere, everywhere. But practically speaking, you may not always have something to be able to execute it. So I would say setting a time where you're not going to be um, impacted by interruptions. Um, and if you are in a position where you may be able to have something like an iPad or some kind of writing device, or tablet, electronic device that you can carry with you mobily, then that makes it a little bit practically easier, especially if you have a family and whatnot, and you don't want to just be a hermit and trapped in a room. And that's another reason why I actually lean towards doing visuals over writing, because I found when I was doing writing, I would literally have to just go into a room and not
Yeah.
interact with the family, and I couldn't practically do that. My kids are still younger, um, and I just felt like I was isolating away from everyone, and it wasn't. I didn't think it was a good thing to do. I enjoy it. It's just I don't think I could sustain it long term for
Mm.
very long.
Yeah. That's a great point you mentioned about integrating all of this with family. And I would like to add one thing, which I discovered actually last month, which is as much as I thought I was very focused and I was not checking social media, etc., on my mobile while on weekend with family. I discovered that it was not true. I
Like,
was checking
yeah.
this stuff, and I deleted the all the social apps from my mobile when I did the course. When I went to Switzerland, I did the course, so I shared publicly that I was not going to be online,
Hmm.
so I was not going to do anything, And as a commitment, I deleted the app. So after that week, I said, okay, I will try not to install it anymore and see how it feels. And maybe if I'm so wrong, I will of course install it again. It's a one click.
Right.
But then I discovered that, oh, I'm much more present and with the family.
Yeah, not
And
having the apps on your phone.
yeah, and the other side is that, okay, if I can be more present when I am with my family, I can also ask them to be generous and say, okay, I'm going to do this 1 hour talk with PJ because I'm very excited and I'm really grateful that you allow me to do that. And I promise that before and after, I will be 100% with you. So
Yeah, yeah,
this also gives me some space and the permission to do this puzzle. So my message for the people who are listening is, first of all, delete all the social apps at the moment. It's a
yeah.
challenge.
It's possible. Yeah, for sure.
And it's surprising because I was surprised. I definitely did not expect that. And the second thing is that we can always find time. And as you said, half an hour, with half an hour of focused work, with half an hour of the thing that excites you, you can do a lot.
Yeah,
So, oh, I don't have time. I also think that. But at the same time, if it matters, you can find time. And even with family, even with that, of course, they have to juggle a little bit, but it's doable. I definitely encourage.
yeah. As you were saying that, it made me also think, especially the last part of what you were saying. Whatever time you have, and if it's important. And there's a question by Anne, who is an alum of Thinking in Visual Metaphors. What's up, Anne?
Oh,
I think I want to say she's in France. Lovely. She does great visuals as well. And she asks, "Are you drawing every day?" And the answer is yes. I'm doing something every day. And to add on to what Roberto was saying, there's this quote that I like literally repeat this quote in my head. And I think it's really, really valuable. It's been valuable for me. And it's from James Clear. And I don't know if he has it in his book, but I heard him say it on a podcast. And I just constantly say it over and over in my head, which is reduce the scope to maintain the habit. And that is just, if you can't put in, and this goes to exercise, it goes to anything, but if you can come to grips with you will not do perfect reps every day, and you will most likely miss something because life is going to get in the way. Whatever you can do, even if it's a chicken scratch or
yeah,
if it's a circle or whatever the case is, to just do something for the day, it
yeah,
creates the confidence that you are going to do what you say you're going to do. And if you're able to live up to that same, I guess, target of who you say you want to be, and then like living up to that and knowing that you follow through on what you say, like that's just one, so empowering, and two, re-energizing and motivating to continue to do the thing. But if you miss a day, then you start to, as much as we would love to fight against like, oh, it's fine, it's okay, you missed a day, but I feel like the natural inclination for most folks is once they miss a day, they're like, oh, I failed. And in order to kind of just fight that before it even becomes an issue, just even doing something small
whatever.
and
Yeah,
whatever you got, whatever you can do, if maybe it's 30 seconds, maybe it's 30 minutes, whatever, that can really have a dramatic impact on your long-term ability to do, whether it's creative work or anything else.
yeah, definitely. I see we have more questions, and we also see that you are almost 1 hour. So, what we can do, PJ, we can answer all the other questions. Of course, we'll answer in the chat. I'm seeing one here. Can you please share both favorite visuals? They will take hour because at least I have a ton of favorite visuals from you, PJ. Which, by the way, I also want to thank you for being such an inspiration. I have so many visuals that I've
Oh,
done
feeling
inspired
is
by you.
completely mutual.
Yeah, and it's this is also the beauty of doing this and iterating on each other. So, thank you for that. And connected to this, before wrapping up, I would like to ask you one question, which
Hmm.
is, to the audience and in general, what would you like to see more and less in the world?
Mm. Oh man, I would love to see. I'll start with less. I would love to see less AI comments.
Oh,
I would love to see less AI comments because, and the reason, and
yeah,
it's not, I don't fault people for doing it because there is like a real mechanism that is in the algorithm that's embedded in the algorithm that probably rewards the more engagement that you're able to do, and AI does enable you to do more comments. I just find that in the spirit of, I guess, what I would like to see more of,
yeah,
it is a block and defeats the purpose of what I want to see more of. And what I want to see more of is more real connections, more
yeah,
real people connections. One thing I generally do, and it does limit the scale of which I'm able to do it, but I like to send video notes. I'll send video notes to you. I'll send video
yeah,
notes to people when they send me a message. It does keep me from responding to at scale.
yeah,
Sometimes, unfortunately, I'm not able to respond to folks in a timely manner. Um, but I, I like doing things that don't scale uh, because I feel like when you're able to do those things, it's like, oh wow, you really care. You actually
yeah.
want
It
to
has a
engage in a
value.
real way, you know.
Yeah,
And so I would love to see less uh, of the things that keep us from making really meaningful connections to other people. Because at the end of the day, I mean, like, the visual metaphors are something that I love doing. It does enable my creative practice, but I hope that it allows us to connect with each other by opening up conversations, by opening up the doorway to say, look, I don't have it all figured out. It's not that I'm creating this stuff to say, again, like, I know what I'm doing, and you guys, if you want to come follow me, you have to do this too. It's more like, hey, this is an idea. What do you guys think? And
yeah.
you had recently, I had posted a visual about complexity versus complication, and
Oh, yeah,
some people were like, oh, that's completely backwards. That's completely wrong. And I'm like, that's cool. I mean,
yeah,
okay. I mean, I define these terms for myself, not based on some kind of philosophical framework that I had studied. It's more like, oh, what is complexity to me? What is complications to me? And there was a response to that, and I think that's great. I mean, I don't I welcome that kind of response. That's what I want. I want people to engage in that conversation. Now, if it's spinned towards me being wrong, I'm like, I mean, maybe, but also I'm not defending the idea. The idea is a visual. The interaction is with the visual, not me. That's how I like to think of it. And it's not to shed responsibility or accountability for what I create. It is just to say my core belief is if I got um if I got handicapped, or not handicapped, but if I got um too caught up in like, oh, I have to do this right or else
yeah,
something's going to go wrong, then that would prohibit me from continuing to create work that I would share.
yeah,
So, as a general rule, I don't make corrections, I don't defend, I don't attack. I just say, look, this is, if that's your interpretation, if that's what you believe, I welcome it because it helps me understand it a little bit more. And maybe, hey, the semantics of complexity versus complications was wrong. That's fine. I have no problem
beautiful.
like making
Yeah,
that shift and thinking, because now I'm like, oh, okay, that's an interesting point. I can continue to iterate on these ideas. But it's just to say the work is meant to be a way to engage and interact with folks, as a way to start up conversations. It's not a finished product, it's not a finished idea. And that's another core facet of what I try to encourage folks in the course to do, which is to think of everything that you create as a work in progress. And
mm,
we are perfecting in public. We are not perfecting at home, waiting
yeah,
for this one day till it's perfect and then sharing. Because guess what? When you do share, it'll still be imperfect.
yeah,
So what I would like to see less of is less of the things that keep us. Sometimes it's core beliefs that may prohibit us from. Maybe it's a little bit of posturing that we have to that we may feel compelled to have online to say, okay, no, you're wrong, I'm right. That kind of stuff. I would love to see less of that because we're all just trying. Everyone's just doing their best trying to figure it out, and I would love to see more real connections, doing less scalable things, doing things that are meaningful, because it's less about status and more about, I think, again, making these building these relationships, because that's what I think is really at the end of the day all it's about.
Thank you. I completely echo that. Thank you so much. And now talking about, and I know we are out of time. Just one more question. And talking about things that don't scale, which is you cannot scale.
Yeah.
But anyway, how can people reach out to you, and what's the best way to be in touch with you? And if you want to share some of your future current project, whatever, what do you want people to know?
Yeah. So if probably the best way to keep in touch is through my newsletter. I have a visual
Mm,
ideas newsletter. We're at 25,000 plus, which is amazing.
wow.
Like 2 years ago, we were at 8 subscribers when I first started it. I think two of those were former students, and six of them were good friends. So I think the newsletter is probably the best way to stay in touch, and to keep up with the my favorite works that I share online. Um, yeah, and the course is also a wonderful way to, if you're interested in learning how to do this stuff and you're interested in exploring what your creativity could potentially lead you. I think the course is something I'm really proud of at this point. When I first started it, I don't think I had the confidence that it was going to be 100% meaningful for everyone. But at this point, I feel very proud of what I've built, and I do believe it's effective. So it's been really wonderful to kind of see that take fruit, with all the effort. I think I had a question from one of the students uh, in the last cohort, and she asked how many visuals did I create just for the course, and I was like, gosh, at least 250 plus just for the course. And so it just building that up to the point where again I'm proud of it, and I think it's
Yeah.
it's really helped a lot of folks, has been really meaningful, and I think probably the course and my newsletter is probably the best place to keep in touch for me.
Yeah. And this speaks a lot about the care that you put in what you do and the intention. So thank you. I want to thank you, PJ, for your time. Thank for the people who connected. And thank you so much for being here, for doing this for the second time. You're such
Yeah,
a
man.
generous, honest, authentic, and humble person, and very creative. It's so inspiration for me. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
so much, Roberto. I appreciate you reaching out, and yeah, being able to have the opportunity to do this again with you. Yeah, man. I mean, you're definitely someone I look up to with all your systems to be able to do everything that you're doing online. Is just like it blows it, my brain just kind of starts to like how is this guy able to do as much as he does? So yeah, you're definitely someone I look up to in that respect, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity to have this conversation again with you, second time.
Yeah. And I know we have more things to discuss. Maybe we'll do a third 1 year from now. Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah. We got our yearly check-in.
Okay. Thank you to everyone. Have a good evening or morning, depending on where you're connected. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.